They call this place Serenity Gardens. There is nothing serene about it. It smells like bleach and endings, a sterile, sharp scent that clings to the back of your throat. Sometimes, underneath, you can catch a whiff of overcooked cabbage or stale urine, quickly masked by another wave of harsh disinfectant. This small room, with its pale green walls the color of old hospital jello, and a window that looks out onto a gravel path and a brick wall, this is my world now. My daughter Laura, she chose this place for me, drove me here herself in her fancy SUV, the one I know she bought after her husband finally left. She said it was for the best. She looked me right in the eye, the same warm brown eyes I used to stare into when she was a baby, curled in my arms. The eyes I taught to see the beauty in a sunset, and whispered, like she was sharing some gentle, unavoidable truth. "It is better this way, Mom. You will be safe here. You would not want to be a burden." A burden. After 68 years on this earth, after raising her, after burying my beloved Arthur, after building a life brick by loving brick in the house he and I poured our souls into, I was reduced to a burden. She probably thinks I do not even remember her words, lost in the fog, they say has claimed my mind. Maybe sometimes the fog does roll in, stealing a name here, a date there. But betrayal? Oh, that cuts through any haze. That kind of wound stays sharp. She emptied my bank accounts, the savings Arthur and I painstakingly built over 45 years. She sold my home, the place Arthur carried me over the threshold, the place where every corner holds a whisper of his laughter, the scent of his pipe tobacco forever ingrained in the worn armchair he loved. She told herself she was doing me a favor, keeping me safe, while lining her own pockets to pay for her messy, expensive divorce. She thought she had covered every track, erased me neatly from my own life. But she forgot about Arthur's old oak filing cabinet in the basement study. She forgot about the promises whispered late at night between a husband and wife. Promises about looking after things, about keeping memories safe. She forgot one single, crucial piece of paper, tucked away not in the places she searched, but in an old biscuit tin, hidden beneath a lifetime of memories. If you are listening to this story, thank you so much for being here. Let us know where you are joining us from in the world, and do not forget to subscribe to become part of our growing community. It was not always like this sterile room, this feeling of being put away on a shelf. Before Serenity Gardens, there was home, our home, a little 2-story house on Maple Street. With blue shutters Arthur painted himself one sunny spring weekend, and a porch swing where we spent countless evenings watching fireflies dance in the twilight. My days used to start with the sun slanting through the kitchen window, warming the worn linoleum floor. I would make coffee in Arthur's old percolator. The smell alone was enough to make me feel he was still there with me. I would drink it from my favorite mug, the one with the chipped bluebird Laura painted for me in 3rd grade. Then, I would head out to the garden. Arthur loved his roses, and I carried on tending them after he was gone. Talking to them, pulling the weeds, feeling the soil between my fingers. It grounded me. It kept his memory alive. Inside, the house was filled with us. Photos on the mantelpiece, our wedding day, Laura's gap-toothed grin at her first communion, Arthur holding up a ridiculously large fish he caught at Miller's Pond. His armchair, worn smooth on the arms, still sat in its usual spot by the fireplace. Sometimes I would just sit in it and close my eyes, imagining I could still hear his quiet breathing beside me. Arthur was a meticulous man, especially with paperwork. He worked as an accountant before he retired. "Keep the originals safe, Ellie," he would always say, tapping a folder. "Separate from the copies. You never know when you might need the real thing, undisputed." He had set up a system, a sturdy filing cabinet in his small basement study. Important documents, the deed, wills, insurance policies, went into specially marked folders, separate from the everyday bills and statements I kept in the kitchen desk drawer. It was a habit I maintained diligently after he passed. It felt like another way of honoring him. The fog, as Laura calls it, started subtly. Forgetting where I put my reading glasses for the 10th time, struggling to recall the name of the new neighbor who had moved in across the street, blanking on a word mid-sentence. It was frustrating, and yes, a little frightening. I knew something was shifting inside my head, like clouds slowly gathering on a clear day. I started making more lists, leaving notes for myself around the house. I worried about becoming truly forgetful, about losing the sharp edges of my memories, especially the precious ones of Arthur. Losing control, that was the real fear. Laura started visiting more often around then. At first, I was glad. Since her separation turned into a nasty divorce, she seemed stressed, distant. Her visits felt like a return to normalcy. She would bring groceries, fuss over me, her brow furrowed with concern. "Mom, are you eating properly? You seem thinner." Or, "Maybe you should not be climbing the stairs so much, Mom." Then came the phone calls she thought I could not overhear. Snippets caught from the living room while she paced in the hallway, her voice tight with anxiety. "He wants what? Half the house? But I put the down payment." Or, "The lawyer fees are bleeding me dry. I do not know how I am going to manage." She would hang up, take a deep breath, and walk back into the room with a strained smile plastered on her face. "Just dealing with lawyers, Mom. You know how it is." Then she started planting the seeds, gently, oh so gently at first. "I worry about you here alone, Mom. What if you fell? What if you forgot to turn off the stove?" Little drops of fear, designed to erode my confidence. "This house is so big for just you. All the upkeep." She would sigh dramatically. "I just want you to be safe. You know I only want what is best for you." She spoke often of her financial struggles, how the divorce was draining everything, how she worried about her own future, her own children's future. She made me feel guilty for having my house, my security, while she was struggling. The catalyst came after a visit to Dr. Evans. He was kind, patient, but the tests confirmed it. Mild cognitive impairment. The early stages of dementia, he called it. He explained it carefully, but the word hung in the air, heavy and cold. Laura was there, holding my hand, looking appropriately concerned, even shedding a few tears. On the drive home, she was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled over to the side of the road. "Mom," she said, her voice thick with false emotion, "we need to talk about the future, about protecting you." She brought up the power of attorney. "It is just a precaution, Mom, so I can help manage your finances, pay your bills if you know, if you are having a bad day or forget. It does not mean anything changes right now. It is just so I can step in and help if you need me to." I hesitated. "Power of attorney? That sounds serious, Laura. What exactly does it mean you can do?" "Oh, nothing you would not want me to do, Mom. Just handle practical things, like talking to the bank or signing papers if you are not feeling up to it. It is to make things easier for you. I would never ever do anything to hurt you or go against your wishes. You know that, right?" She squeezed my hand, her eyes pleading. I felt tired. The diagnosis had shaken me. The fear of the future, of the encroaching fog, was real. And here was my daughter, my only child, promising to help, to protect me. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was sensible. Against the quiet voice of Arthur in my memory urging caution, against my own uneasy gut feeling, I nodded slowly. "All right, Laura, if you think it is best." I felt like I was handing over a piece of myself, a piece of my independence, but I pushed the feeling down, telling myself I was doing the responsible thing, telling myself I could trust my own daughter. A few weeks later, Laura came over, bubbling with forced enthusiasm. "Mom, I found the most wonderful place. It is called Serenity Gardens. It is more like a resort, really. They have lovely apartments, activities, nurses on call 24/7. It would be perfect for you." My heart sank. "A place? Laura, I do not want to go to a place. This is my home." "Oh, Mom, it is not forever, just temporary," she rushed to reassure me, her voice bright and brittle. "Think of it as a little vacation while I sort out some things with the house. Maybe some minor repairs are needed. You know, make it safer for you. And while you are there, I can focus on finalizing this awful divorce without worrying about you being alone. You would be so comfortable there, making new friends. Just for a little while. Please, Mom, for me? Do not you love me? I am under so much stress. Just knowing you are safe and cared for would lift such a weight off my shoulders." She played the guilt card expertly. She showed me glossy brochures with pictures of smiling seniors, playing cards, and strolling through immaculate gardens. It looked nothing like the place I sit in now. Exhausted, confused, and manipulated, I finally gave in. "Just for a little while?" I asked, my voice small. "Just for a little while," she promised, hugging me tightly. The day I left Maple Street was one of the worst days of my life. Laura bustled around, packing a single suitcase for me. "Just the essentials, Mom. They have everything you need there." She brushed aside my attempts to pack my box of old photos, my worn copy of Arthur's favorite poetry book. "Less clutter is better, Mom." As she was busy in the hallway, taking a call, probably with her lawyer again, judging by her hushed, urgent tones, I moved quickly. My hands trembled, but my mind was suddenly sharp, focused. I went to my closet, pulled out the old biscuit tin from the top shelf where I kept it hidden. Inside, nestled amongst some old letters and dried flowers, was the original deed to the house, crisp and official, bearing my name and Arthur's. Beside it, I tucked the small digital voice recorder Arthur had given me years ago. "To capture your thoughts, Ellie," he had said, smiling. I had barely used it then, but now it felt like a lifeline. I wrapped the tin in an old shawl and carefully placed it at the very bottom of the suitcase, beneath folded sweaters and nightgowns. A secret weight, known only to me. The drive to Serenity Gardens was mostly silent. When we pulled up, my stomach clenched. This was not the place from the brochure. The building was squat, institutional, the paint peeling in places. There were no immaculate gardens, just a patch of brownish lawn and a few struggling bushes. Inside, the air hung heavy with that smell. Bleach and sadness. A bored-looking woman behind a counter barely glanced up. Laura handled the paperwork with brisk efficiency, avoiding my eyes. She gave me a quick, awkward hug. "I will be back soon, Mom. Settle in nicely." And then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the linoleum hallway, leaving me standing alone with my single suitcase and the heavy secret hidden inside it. The heavy metal door of my assigned room clanged shut, the sound echoing down the sterile corridor. Serenity Gardens. It felt more like a prison. Laura's saccharine promises evaporated, leaving only the bitter taste of betrayal. I looked at the peeling green paint on the walls, the threadbare armchair in the corner, the empty look in the eyes of the woman shuffling past my door. This was not a temporary haven. It was an endpoint. My daughter had locked me away, thinking my mind was as frail as my body. But as I clutched the worn handle of my suitcase, I felt the solid weight of the old biscuit tin hidden deep inside. She thought she held all the keys. She had no idea I still possessed the master key the original deed to my home, my life, my past. And tucked beside it, a tiny recorder, ready to capture the truth. The fight had just begun, even if only I knew it. Fan 2. Lưu ý, đây là phần 2 của câu chuyện tương ứng với hối 2. Đối đầu, phần 1, Rising Action, Part 1 trong dàn ý. Phần này có dung lượng khoảng 200-300 từ. The days at Serenity Gardens bled into one another, marked only by the monotonous routine. Breakfast at 7:30, lukewarm oatmeal or rubbery scrambled eggs served on plastic trays. Medication rounds at 8:30, administered by a nurse whose smile never quite reached her eyes. Forced activity time at 10. Bingo with faded cards or sing-alongs where most residents just stared blankly ahead. Lunch at noon, usually something beige and boiled, tasting faintly of disappointment. Then came the long, empty afternoons, stretching endlessly until dinner, another uninspired meal served too early. The room they gave me was small, overlooking the aforementioned brick wall. It offered little comfort. The mattress on the narrow bed dipped in the middle. The single armchair was covered in a scratchy floral fabric that smelled faintly of dust and someone else's lonely hours. There was no privacy. Staff members would walk in without knocking, sometimes even while I was changing. Their voices were often loud, impatient. "Come on, Eleanor, time for your shower." Or, "Did you forget to take your pills again, Eleanor?" They spoke about me as if I was not there, discussing my level of confusion or my lack of appetite right in front of me. It was dehumanizing. I felt stripped bare, not just of my home and my money, but of my dignity, my very personhood. Early on, I realized that complaining got me nowhere. It only earned me annoyed sighs or placating, empty reassurances. Now, Eleanor, this is a lovely place. You just need time to adjust." Adjust to what? To being warehoused? To being forgotten? No, complaining was pointless. Worse, it could draw unwanted attention. If they thought I was lucid and unhappy, they might report back to Laura, and she might take steps I could not anticipate. So, I began to play the part they expected of me. I amplified the fog. When a nurse asked if I remembered her name, I would furrow my brow and shake my head slowly, even if I knew perfectly well it was Brenda, the one who was always rough when helping me dress. I would ask the same question multiple times in the space of an hour. "What time is lunch again?" I would forget where my room was, wandering hesitantly down the corridor until someone steered me back. I would sometimes talk to Arthur as if he were sitting in the empty chair beside me. It was not entirely an act. Grief and stress sometimes made the past feel more real than the present. But I leaned into it, using the perception of my confusion as a shield. If they thought I was lost in my own world, they would leave me alone. They would not suspect the sharp, calculating mind working beneath the surface. This act, however, came at a cost. There were moments, usually late at night, when the silence of the room pressed in, amplifying the ticking of the cheap plastic clock on the bedside table. The lines between the real fog and the pretend fog would blur. Was I truly remembering Arthur's voice, or was it just wishful thinking? Would I eventually become the confused old woman everyone assumed I was? Fear, cold and sharp, would grip me then. Tears I refused to shed during the day would silently soak my pillow. The loneliness was a physical ache, a hollowness in my chest where my life used to be. I missed my garden. I missed the scent of rain on the pavement outside my window. I missed Arthur with an intensity that stole my breath. My most precious possession, the biscuit tin, became my anchor. Keeping it safe was paramount. The closet was too obvious. Under the bed? Too easily found during cleaning. Then I noticed it. a loose floorboard partially hidden by the worn rug near the window. It took some effort, my old hands fumbling, but late one night, when the corridor was quiet, I managed to pry it up just enough to slip the tin into the shallow space beneath. Getting it out again would be tricky, but it felt secure. The recorder was another challenge. Arthur's gift was small, but it needed power. The outlets in the room were easily visible. I noticed one of the younger night aides, a quiet girl named Maria, often charged her phone at the nurse's station. She seemed kinder than the others, sometimes offering me a genuine smile or an extra blanket without being asked. One evening, feigning confusion about how the TV remote worked, I struck up a conversation with her. Over several nights, I built a fragile rapport. Finally, heart pounding, I risked it. I showed her the recorder, whispering that it held precious memories of my late husband, and asked if she could possibly charge it for me discreetly. I offered her $10, a significant portion of the little cash I had managed to keep hidden. She hesitated, glancing nervously down the hall, but then nodded, tucking the recorder and the bill into her pocket. "Just this once, Eleanor," she whispered back. It was a risk for her, and I knew it. But it worked. She returned it the next night, fully charged. I knew I could not rely on her often, but it was a start. Laura's visits became less frequent as the weeks turned into months. When she did come, the performance continued. She would arrive bearing cheap flowers or a box of drugstore chocolates, her smile stretched thin over her palpable tension. She would sit awkwardly on the edge of the scratchy armchair, checking her phone constantly. "How are you settling in, Mom?" she would ask, her voice overly bright. "It is quiet here," I would reply vaguely, looking around the room as if seeing it for the first time. She would launch into complaints about her divorce, the escalating legal fees, her ex-husband being unreasonable. "He is trying to take everything, Mom. I do not know what I will do." Then inevitably the conversation would turn to finances, my finances. This was when I would discreetly reach under the thin blanket on my lap and press the record button on the tiny device hidden in my cardigan pocket. My hands would shake slightly, praying she would not notice. "The costs here are quite high, Mom," she would say, sighing heavily. "And with everything else going on, I have been thinking, maybe it is time to sell the house. It is just sitting empty, costing money for taxes and upkeep. Selling it would provide the funds to ensure you have the very best care here, long term, and it would take a huge weight off my shoulders." "Sell the house?" I would echo, widening my eyes, pretending confusion. "Arthur's house?" "It is for the best, Mom," she would insist, her voice hardening slightly. "You do not need that big place anymore. You are safe here. This way, your money will be working for you, paying for your care." On one visit, she sounded almost triumphant. "I have found a buyer, Mom. A lovely young couple. They adore the house. They made a very fair offer. It means you will be financially secure for years to come." "A buyer?" I kept my voice quavering. "But our things? Arthur's books?" "Do not worry about that, Mom," she said dismissively. "I will sort through everything. We can keep a few sentimental items, of course." The recordings captured it all. Her calculated excuses, her dismissal of my attachment to the house, her focus on the money, her growing impatience with my feigned confusion. Each click of the recorder felt like forging another link in the chain of evidence I was building against her. Then came the requests for more signatures. Laura would arrive with official-looking documents, spreading them out on the small table. "Just a few more things the bank needs, Mom," she would say casually. Or, "This is just permission to sell some of the old furniture, things you do not need anymore." I would peer at the papers, hold them upside down, trace the lines with a trembling finger. "I do not understand these words, dear." "Just sign here, Mom," she would urge, pointing to the line, her patience wearing thin. Sometimes I would sign my name incorrectly, Eleanor Smith, instead of Eleanor Albright. Other times I would suddenly forget how to hold the pen. Or I would push the papers away, whining, "My hand hurts today, Laura, maybe tomorrow." Her frustration was palpable. "Mom, you have to sign this. It is important," she snapped on one occasion, her voice sharp. Then, quickly catching herself, she softened her tone. "It is just to help manage things, remember? To make sure you are taken care of." I recorded that outburst too. The mask was slipping. My isolation felt profound. I tried tentatively to reach out. I wrote a letter to my cousin Martha in Ohio, keeping the message vague but hinting I was not happy. I handed it to a daytime nurse for mailing, but I doubted it ever left the building. Mail was likely screened. I tried asking Maria, the night aide, if I could use the phone at the nurse's station to make a quick call, saying I wanted to wish my granddaughter happy birthday. She looked torn but apologetically refused. "It is against the rules, Eleanor. I could lose my job." Fear kept everyone compliant. It was during one dreary afternoon in the communal lounge, while a game of bingo droned on, that I found myself sitting next to Agnes Gable. Mrs. Gable, as everyone called her, was a resident I had noticed before. She rarely spoke, often just staring out the window with an air of quiet resignation. But that day, perhaps sensing a kindred spirit in my own silence, she turned to me. "Lost in thought, dearie?" she asked, her voice surprisingly clear, though soft. "Just remembering," I murmured. She nodded slowly. "Lots of time for remembering in a place like this." A bitter smile touched her lips. "Sometimes it is all you have left, especially when your own flesh and blood decides your memories are not worth as much as your savings account." My head snapped up. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Her eyes, though faded, held a spark of intelligence and deep-seated pain. "My son," she continued, her voice barely a whisper, "cleaned me out, convinced me to invest my retirement fund in his brilliant business idea. All gone now, and here I am." She gestured vaguely at the room. "He visits once a month, brings cheap chocolates." Her story, so similar to my own unfolding nightmare, struck a chord deep within me. I was not entirely alone in this experience. Others had walked this path of betrayal. "Do not trust anyone completely, Eleanor," Mrs. Gable advised, her gaze sharp and direct, as if she could see right through my facade of confusion. "Not even your own daughter. Keep your wits about you, even if you have to pretend you have lost them. And if there is anything at all you manage to hold on to, guard it with your life. Sometimes that is all the fight you have left." Her words resonated long after our conversation ended. Guard it with your life. The biscuit tin, the deed, the recorder. They were more than just objects. They were my weapons, my hope. Mrs. Gable's quiet warning solidified my resolve. Laura thought she was dealing with a fading mind. She had no idea she was dealing with a woman who had just been reminded exactly what she was fighting for. I would not end up like Mrs. Gable, resigned and waiting for the end. I would fight back. I just needed to find the right way to land the first blow, and I had a feeling I knew exactly who could help me. Arthur's old friend, Mr. Henderson. The challenge now was reaching him. Mr. Henderson, Arthur's oldest friend and former lawyer, a man whose integrity Arthur trusted implicitly. The name echoed Mrs. Gable's advice. Guard what you have. Fight back. But how? How could I, trapped within these pale green walls, reach a respected lawyer downtown? Mail was likely intercepted. The phones were monitored or restricted. Asking Maria again felt too risky. I could not jeopardize her job further. Weeks passed. My hope began to fray around the edges, like the worn fabric on the armchair. Laura's visits continued sporadically, each one leaving a more bitter taste. She spoke of the house sale now as a done deal, discussing closing dates and paperwork she needed finalized, though she never brought any more papers for me to sign after my consistent refusals. She seemed edgy, preoccupied. Was the sale hitting a snag, or was she just anxious to get her hands on the money? The recorder kept capturing her impatient sighs, her veiled threats about the rising cost of my care. Then, an unexpected opportunity arose. A church group began visiting Serenity Gardens on Wednesday afternoons, organizing a small supervised outing to a nearby park for residents deemed mobile enough. Usually, I declined such invitations, preferring the relative privacy of my room. But this time, an idea sparked, a risky, desperate idea. I knew Mr. Henderson's office address by heart. Arthur had pointed it out countless times when we drove downtown. It was only a few blocks from the park the church group frequented. That Wednesday, I surprised the supervising nurse by readily agreeing to join the outing. I dressed carefully, ensuring the recorder was securely in my pocket, and, taking a deep breath, retrieved the precious biscuit tin from beneath the loose floorboard. It felt heavy, conspicuous. I wrapped it in my thickest cardigan and clutched it to my chest, as if it were merely a comfort item, something a confused old woman might cling to. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was madness. If caught, Laura would surely find out, and whatever small freedoms I had would vanish. The park was pleasant, a small patch of green amidst the city bustle. While the other residents sat on benches, listlessly watching pigeons, and the church volunteers chatted amongst themselves, I saw my chance. Feigning a need for the restroom, a small public facility at the edge of the park, I slowly shuffled away from the group, clutching my cardigan-wrapped bundle. My escort, a young volunteer more interested in her phone than her elderly charge, trailed several paces behind, distracted. Praying she would not follow me inside, I slipped into the restroom. Instead of using the facilities, I exited through a secondary door on the opposite side, a door that thankfully opened onto a side street. Freedom, however brief and terrifying, tasted metallic in my mouth. My legs felt shaky, unused to walking so far, so fast. I kept to the quieter side streets, pulling my cardigan tighter, trying to look like any other elderly woman out for a stroll, not an escapee from a nursing home clutching proof of felony fraud. Each approaching pedestrian made me jump. Each police car cruising by sent a jolt of panic through me. Finally, breathless and trembling, I saw it. Henderson and Associates, attorneys at law. The familiar brass plaque gleamed dully on the brick building. Taking another deep breath, I pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped into the quiet, carpeted reception area. The young woman at the desk looked up surprised. "Can I help you, madam?" I need to see Mr. Henderson," I stammered, leaning against the counter for support. "It is urgent. My name is Eleanor Albright, Arthur Albright's wife." She eyed my disheveled appearance, the oddly clutched bundle. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but please tell him it is Eleanor, Arthur's Eleanor. He will understand." She hesitated, then picked up the phone, murmuring quietly. A minute later, the inner office door opened, and there he stood. James Henderson. Older, grayer, lines etched deeper around his kind eyes, but unmistakably him. He looked surprised, then concerned, as he took in my state. Laura must have contacted him, spun her tale about my condition. "Eleanor," he said, stepping forward. "What is it? Are you all right? Laura mentioned you were unwell." "James," I whispered, my voice raw with desperation. "I am not unwell. I am trapped. Laura is trying to steal everything." He guided me gently into his private office, a quiet space lined with books, smelling of old paper and lemon polish. He closed the door, his expression a mixture of concern and professional caution. "Eleanor, please, sit down. Tell me what is happening." With trembling hands, I unwrapped the cardigan and placed the biscuit tin on his polished mahogany desk. I opened it. First, I laid out the original deed to the house on Maple Street, Arthur's signature bold and clear beside mine. Then I took out the small digital recorder. "Laura has power of attorney," I said, my voice gaining strength. "She put me in that place, Serenity Gardens. She told me it was temporary. She is selling our house, James. She has been taking my money. She thinks I do not understand, that I am too confused to know." I pressed the play button on the recorder. Laura's voice filled the quiet office, sharp and impatient. "Sell the house thôi mì ơi, không còn cách nào khác. Mẹ ở đây là tốt nhất rồi, đằng nào mẹ cũng đâu còn nhớ gì." I watched James Henderson's face as he listened. His cautious demeanor dissolved, replaced by disbelief, then dawning horror, and finally, a cold, hard anger that tightened his jaw. He looked from the deed to the recorder, then back at me, truly seeing me for the first time since I walked in. Not as a confused old woman, but as Arthur's wife, his friend, and a victim. When the recording stopped, the silence was heavy. She did this?" he finally managed, his voice low, incredulous. "Using the power of attorney? And the house sale, is it finalized?" "She said she found buyers. She talks about closing soon." He stood up abruptly, pacing the room. The deceit, the cruelty of it. Arthur would be spinning in his grave. He stopped in front of me, his eyes filled with fierce determination. "Eleanor, I am so sorry. I should have checked in on you sooner. Laura painted a picture. But this..." He gestured at the tin. "This changes everything. We will fight this, Eleanor, I promise you. On Arthur's memory, we will fight this." Tears welled in my eyes, tears of pure, unadulterated relief. For the first time in months, I did not feel completely alone. Hope, fragile but real, flickered back to life. "Thank you, James," I wept softly. "Thank you." He quickly arranged for a taxi to take me back near the park, advising me to slip back to the group as discreetly as possible. He kept the tin, promising to make secure copies and start investigating immediately. The ride back was a blur, my mind racing, but my heart lighter than it had been in ages. I managed to rejoin the group unnoticed, just as they were preparing to leave. No one seemed to have missed me. The secret was safe, and the wheels of justice had finally begun to turn. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Henderson worked swiftly and discreetly. He confirmed the house sale was indeed in progress, listed under Laura's authority via the power of attorney. He obtained my bank records, revealing the systematic draining of my accounts into Laura's name. He hired a forensic document examiner who, after comparing the signature on the sale agreement with samples of my real signature from old documents Henderson had on file, definitively declared it a forgery. Henderson also made cautious inquiries with the buyer's attorney, raising red flags about potential irregularities in the sale. Laura must have felt the net tightening. Her visits became more charged with frantic energy. She stopped asking me to sign things and started demanding, "Mom, the buyers are getting antsy. Their lawyer keeps asking questions. Did you talk to someone? Did you tell anyone anything?" Her eyes scanned my face suspiciously. One afternoon, she arrived in a particularly foul mood. "Someone is interfering, Mom. Henderson called my lawyer. What did you tell him?" she accused, her voice rising. "Henderson?" I feigned innocence, widening my eyes. "Arthur's friend? I have not seen him in ages." Do not lie to me, she shrieked, losing control. You are pretending, aren't you? You senile old woman, ruining everything. She started pacing the small room like a caged animal. I worked so hard to set this up, to secure my future. And you. In her rage, she began rummaging through my meager belongings in the small closet, tossing clothes onto the floor. Where are the old bank books? Is there anything else? My blood ran cold as her hands neared the area where the loose floorboard was. I had not put the tin back yet. It was still with Henderson. But what if she noticed the board? Thinking fast, I let out a low moan and clutched my chest, slumping over in the armchair. Oh, my heart, I gasped, making my breathing ragged. It worked. Laura froze, her anger momentarily replaced by alarm, or perhaps annoyance at the inconvenience. Mom? What is it now? She reluctantly abandoned her search and came over, peering at me impatiently. The moment passed. She eventually left, muttering threats under her breath, but she did not find anything. The recorder, however, captured her furious accusations and her frantic searching. More proof. Just when my hopes were highest, Mr. Henderson delivered a crushing blow. He visited me again, his face grim. Eleanor, he began gently, we have a problem. The sale of the house has unfortunately gone through to the point where the buyers are considered bona fide purchasers for value. That means they bought the house in good faith, unaware of Laura's fraud. He explained the legal complexities, proving fraud could invalidate the POA and potentially lead to criminal charges against Laura, and we could certainly sue her for the money. But getting the house itself back from innocent buyers would be an uphill battle, potentially taking years and costing a fortune, with no guarantee of success. The court is more likely to award monetary damages from Laura, he concluded somberly. But based on what we see in her accounts, she has already spent most of it. The floor seemed to drop out from beneath me. The house. Lost? Arthur's house, sold off by our own daughter, gone forever? All this fighting, all this risk. For what? Just money? Money could not replace the scent of Arthur's pipe tobacco or the feel of the sun on the porch swing. Despair washed over me, thick and suffocating. Maybe Laura was right. Maybe I was destined to fade away here, in this bleach-scented room, with nothing left but faded memories and the ghost of a home. I felt utterly defeated. That night, sleep refused to come. I just stared at the ceiling, the silence broken only by the distant cough of another resident. Then, adding cruelty to injury, I overheard Laura again. She must have come by late thinking I was asleep, and took a call in the hallway just outside my slightly ajar door. Her voice, dripping with smug satisfaction, carried clearly into my room. Yeah, finally closed. Got the money. Took care of that big lawyer bill. That old Henderson tried to make trouble, but it was too late. God, it is such a relief. The old bat? Still locked away in dreamland, none the wiser. Serves her right for being such a burden all these years. Her callous words, her triumphant dismissal of me as the old bat, snapped something inside me. The despair did not vanish, but it was consumed by a white-hot rage. Burden? Served me right? How dare she? I thought of Arthur, his steady gaze, his quiet strength. Never let anyone walk over you, Ellie, his voice echoed in my memory. Fight for what is right. No, I would not fade away. I would not let her win. She took my money, she took my house, she tried to take my dignity, but she could not take my fight. The next morning, I used the prearranged secure method to contact Henderson, a brief call from the payphone down the hall, during a time I knew the staff changed shifts, using coins I had carefully saved. My voice did not tremble this time. It was cold, hard steel. James, I said, skipping the pleasantries. Forget just the money. We fight for the house. We fight for everything. We use the recordings, the deed, the forgery. Her own disgusting words I recorded last night. We expose her. I do not care how long it takes or what it costs. She will not get away with this. There was a pause on the other end, then Henderson's voice came back, filled with renewed determination. All right, Eleanor, all right. If you are ready, then so am I. We will file immediately. We will request an emergency injunction based on the fraud. We will use every piece of evidence we have. It will be tough, but we will give it everything. Laura thought she had won. She was already spending the money stained with betrayal, planning her new life built on the ruins of mine. She pictured me fading away quietly in this forgotten corner. But she underestimated the woman Arthur Albright loved. She underestimated a mother's fury. The recordings were ready. The original deed was safe. Mr. Henderson was preparing the storm. Laura wouldn't know what hit her until it was too late. The final act was about to begin. Mr. Henderson moved like a man possessed. Within days, the lawsuit was filed. A thick packet of legal documents landed on Laura's doorstep, detailing accusations of fraud, elder abuse, forgery, and misappropriation of funds. It included a request for an immediate injunction to halt any final steps related to the house and, crucially, a motion to freeze her assets. Predictably, Laura exploded. My phone in the room, the one strictly for internal calls or pre-approved numbers, rang shrilly. It was her somehow getting through, her voice a venomous hiss. How could you do this to me? Your own daughter! After everything I have done for you, you ungrateful old... She choked on her rage. You will regret this. You will die alone in that hellhole, and I will not shed a single tear. I gripped the receiver, my knuckles white, but my voice, when I spoke, was surprisingly steady. Perhaps it was the cold fury that had settled deep within me. We will discuss this in court, Laura. I hung up before she could spew any more poison, my hand trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer audacity of her self-pity. The preliminary hearing felt surreal. I sat beside Mr. Henderson at a long table in a formal courtroom. Across from us sat Laura, pale and tight-lipped, next to a slick-looking lawyer who radiated false confidence. The room felt cold, imposing, but looking at James Henderson's determined profile, I felt a surge of strength. Arthur would have approved. Mr. Henderson laid out our case methodically. He presented the original deed, clear evidence of my ownership long before Laura's scheme began. He submitted the forensic examiner's report, unequivocally stating the signature on the house sale agreement was forged. He detailed the systematic draining of my bank accounts, presenting statements showing large sums transferred directly to Laura, coinciding perfectly with her known divorce expenses and luxury purchases. Then came the recordings. Henderson placed a small player on the table. He had carefully selected key segments. Laura's voice, first coaxing and manipulative, then impatient and dismissive, finally sharp and cruel, filled the quiet courtroom. Sell the house, thoy mea, humkon ket now kak. Mi o de la totnyet roy, dang now me kum do kon yozi. You senile old woman ruining everything. You will die alone in this nursing home and nobody will even care. A shocked silence followed the final, chilling statement. I saw Laura flinch. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The judge, a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes, peered over her glasses, her expression unreadable but clearly attentive. Laura's lawyer tried his best to salvage the situation. He painted me as a confused, vindictive old woman, easily manipulated by Mr. Henderson, suffering from delusions due to my diagnosed condition. He called the head nurse from Serenity Gardens as a witness, who dutifully testified about my episodes of confusion and memory lapses, carefully omitting any mention of the neglect or isolation. When it was my turn to speak, my heart pounded, but I focused on the judge, on the truth. I answered the question simply, clearly. Yes, sometimes I forgot names or dates, but no, I did not forget being lied to. I did not forget being abandoned. I did not forget the feel of my own home being stolen from under me. When Laura's lawyer pressed me, trying to trip me up, asking if I was perhaps mistaken about what Laura had said, I looked directly at my daughter across the room. Her eyes, usually so adept at feigning emotion, were filled with cold fury. "My memory may fail me on small things, sir," I said, my voice clear and steady, resonating in the quiet room. "I might forget where I put my glasses or what I ate for breakfast. But I will never, ever forget the look on my daughter's face when she told me I was a burden. I will never forget the sound of her voice planning to sell my home while telling me she loved me. Some things, counselor, dementia cannot erase. Betrayal is one of them. Betrayal is..." That evening, cornered and desperate, Laura made her fatal mistake. She went home and turned on her phone camera. Live on Facebook for all her friends and acquaintances, and soon the world, to see. With tears streaming down her face, crocodile tears I knew instantly, she launched into a rambling, self-pitying monologue. "I cannot believe what is happening," she sobbed dramatically into the camera. "My own mother, manipulated by this greedy old lawyer. She is trying to destroy me after I sacrificed everything to take care of her. She is sick. She does not know what she is doing." But then, fueled by rage and a desperate need to justify herself, the narrative shifted. The victim mask slipped, revealing the ugliness beneath. "Yes, okay. Maybe I sold the house," she admitted defiantly, her voice rising. "But it was necessary to pay for her expensive care, the care she demands. And yes, I used some of the money. Why shouldn't I? After everything I have been through with my divorce, the years I spent putting up with her, her moods, her forgetfulness, she owes me. That house, she was just sitting on it, rattling around in that big empty place like a ghost. She does not even know what day it is. What does she need a house for?" She ranted on, contradicting herself, inadvertently confessing to the motives, the actions, the contempt she truly felt. It was a spectacular implosion, broadcast live for anyone to witness. By the next morning, the video had gone viral. Mr. Henderson had a certified copy delivered to the judge's chambers. It was the final nail in Laura's coffin. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. The power of attorney was deemed to have been obtained under undue influence and subsequently abused through fraudulent acts. The sale of the house was declared null and void due to the forged signature and Laura's demonstrable fraud. The innocent buyers were ordered to vacate, but their funds were to be fully reimbursed from Laura's frozen assets, which the court promptly ordered liquidated to satisfy the judgment. Laura was ordered to repay every cent she had taken from my accounts. Furthermore, the judge referred the entire case file to the district attorney's office, strongly recommending criminal prosecution for forgery, felony fraud, and elder abuse. The fallout for Laura was catastrophic. Her reputation was ruined. Friends abandoned her. Her ex-husband, armed with the court ruling and the infamous live stream video, easily won sole custody of their children, arguing convincingly that Laura was emotionally unstable and morally unfit. Facing financial ruin, public disgrace, and the very real threat of prison time, Laura lost everything. She had sown the wind, and now she reaped the whirlwind. Mr. Henderson handled the arrangements for the buyers with sensitivity. They were understandably upset, but relieved to be getting their money back. They expressed their sympathy for my situation before quietly moving on. The day I left Serenity Gardens felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel. I packed my single suitcase, this time adding the few personal items I had kept hidden. As I walked down the corridor for the last time, Mrs. Gable stood waiting by her door. She grasped my hand, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You did it, Eleanor," she whispered. "You fought back. You gave an old woman some hope." I squeezed her hand back, promising to visit. Mr. Henderson was waiting outside, a warm, genuine smile on his face. Stepping back into my house on Maple Street was overwhelming. It felt cold, empty, layered with dust and the faint scent of strangers. Grief washed over me. Grief for Arthur, grief for the daughter I thought I had, grief for the time stolen from me. But beneath the grief, there was a deeper current of peace, of homecoming. This was my sanctuary, hard-won and fiercely protected. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to reclaim my life. With Mr. Henderson's help managing the returned finances, I hired cleaners, painters, gardeners. I aired out the rooms, polished the furniture, filled the vases with flowers from Arthur's rose bushes, which had miraculously survived the neglect. The house began to breathe again, to feel like home. My home. My mind felt clearer here, surrounded by familiarity, free from the constant stress and humiliation of the nursing home. The fog still visited occasionally, but it no longer held terror. I knew who I was. I was Eleanor Albright, Arthur's wife, a survivor. They say memory is the first thing to go when you get older. Maybe they are right about names and dates. But the memory of injustice, the memory of love, the fierce instinct to protect what is yours, those things run deeper than simple recall. Laura took my money. She tried to take my home. She tried to erase me. But she could not extinguish the core of who I am. My story, thanks to a small article in the local paper that Mr. Henderson discreetly facilitated, brought unexpected connections. Other seniors reached out, sharing their own quiet struggles. And so a new purpose began to bloom. In the sunny living room where Arthur and I once read by the fire, I started hosting a small, informal weekly gathering. We drink tea, share stories, offer support. Mr. Henderson sometimes joins us, offering quiet legal guidance. It is not a grand charity, just a small circle of understanding, a place where forgotten voices can be heard. I am no longer just Eleanor Albright, the widow, the victim. I am Eleanor, the listener, the friend, the quiet anchor in a small community built on shared experience and mutual respect. I found my serenity, not in the falsely named gardens, but right here in Arthur's house, living a life of purpose on my own terms. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. It was a long and difficult journey, one paved with tears and betrayal, but also with unexpected strength and the kindness of strangers who became friends. Remember, even when the world tries to tell you you are invisible or your mind is not sharp enough, there is a fire within you that no one can extinguish. Fight for what is yours. Fight for what is right. If my story touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video, leaving a comment to share your thoughts or perhaps your own experiences, and subscribing to our channel. Your presence here means the world to us, and we have so many more stories waiting to be told. Stay strong, take care of yourselves and each other, and I look forward to sharing another story with you soon. Goodbye for now.